Listening. This is one of the things that I am constantly talking to my students about, all the way from beginners on day one, all the way through college students as they're working on developing their musicianship and wanting to become future educators and professional performers. Music is a language, and we learn language by listening. We learn by imitating. I give the example of a little baby in a crib. And I ask students to either imagine a niece or a nephew or a little brother or sister and talking to them. And at first, they just look at you. They stare back. They may or may not have facial expressions, but they're engaged. And then they start to learn sounds, and it's a mumble jumble. And then eventually they're able to say a word. And then they're able to say a few fragments of words and kind of piece together ideas. And then they're able to say sentences. And then by the time they get to fifth or sixth grade, when I meet with them, they're really they're literate and they're fluent in the language. Well, music is the same way. We learn how just to make random sounds, and then we learn how to say a few words, and then a few sentences, and then we learn how to communicate. So music, it's about communicating. It's not about playing all those little black dots on the page exactly right. That's the nuts and bolts, and a certain percentage of those need to be right. It's the whole thing of what comes first, the chicken or the egg. What comes first, the music or the notes? It's a big debate. And so the goal is to communicate and to let all of the details kind of work out over time as we kind of zoom in and out. And in order to communicate, in order to tell a story, in order to have a voice, we have to be able to hear what we want to sound like. We have to be able to imagine this idea, and we have to be able to not just hear it in our head, but we have to hear it in the room. And then as we're practicing, we have to ask ourselves, are we lining up with that imagined sound concept, with that phrase that we're hearing? So before you sit down and practice, doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, how many years you've been playing, before you sit down and practice, or as you sit down and practice, pull up we all have phones. We have the world at our fingertips. We have the world in our palm. It's amazing. We have YouTube, we have Spotify, we have iTunes, we have Pandora. It's amazing. And so put together a playlist and listen to one track, listen to one recording before you sit down and practice. And not just while you're doing other things, but literally sit down, put on your headphones, close your eyes, and imagine what it would be like to play as if your favorite player is playing. What are they doing with their sound? What are they doing with their air? How are they making it sound so easy? And then when you go to play your first note, the horn comes up, and you're going to try to sound like Phil Smith. Can you make one note sound like Phil Smith?